This is the first episode of a new series called They Built It Anyway, and it begins with a truth rarely taught. Even after every promise was broken, black communities kept building, not once, not briefly, again and again. After slavery, after land was taken, after savings were stolen, after laws were stacked against them, black Americans didn't wait for permission to survive. They created towns, institutions, economies, and governments of their own, often in places where failure was expected and success was resented. One of those places was Greenwood, Oklahoma, known to the world as Black Wall Street. Even after the 1921 massacre reduced it to ashes, survivors rebuilt businesses, homes, and schools with no insurance payouts and no government help. Within a decade, Greenwood was alive again because destruction did not erase the knowledge of how to build. But Greenwood was not alone. In Florida, a man named Joe Clark helped establish Eatonville, one of the first self-governing black towns in America. Eatonville didn't ask to be included. It incorporated itself in 1887, elected its own leaders, controlled its own land, and educated its own children. It became a place where black life was not managed, but governed from within. In Mississippi, formerly enslaved families founded Mound Bayou in 1887, building a town from undeveloped land with black-owned farms, banks, and hospitals. At its height, Mound Bayou was entirely black-run, economically independent, and nationally recognized. It stood as proof that black self-sufficiency was not theoretical, it was operational. And then there was Rosewood, Florida. In 1923, white mobs destroyed the town after a false accusation, killing residents and forcing survivors to flee. Rosewood never fully rebuilt, but its people lived on, carrying land deeds, family records, and truth that would surface decades later. In 1994, survivors and descendants finally received formal acknowledgement of what had been taken, not as charity but as recognition. These towns were not accidents, they were strategies. Black Americans pooled resources, shared labor, built schools before churches, and businesses before comfort. They created mutual aid systems, burial societies, and local economies that circulated money internally when banks refused service. And that is why these towns were targeted, because they contradicted the narrative. They proved that black communities did not fail due to lack of ability, but due to sustained interference. When towns succeeded, violence followed. When violence failed, laws followed. When laws failed, disinvestment followed. Yet still, people built anyway. They built in swamps, on prairies, in remote farmland, and along railroad lines. They built where land was cheap because exclusion made it so. They built knowing that success might attract attention, and attention might bring destruction. What survives today is not every building but the blueprint. The knowledge that freedom was never simply given, it was constructed, defended, and rebuilt when necessary. This series is about those stories, the communities that refused to disappear, the people who rebuilt after every barrier. The systems of survival that kept black life moving forward when the country tried to push it backward. This was just the beginning. This is They Built It Anyway. This series tells the stories of how black communities kept building. Follow to see how they did it.